3 days ago, we started the holy season of Lent, a time that I have heard is considered to be the annual retreat of the Universal Church. So we are on retreat. And so I was thinking that, putting myself in that, setting, in retreat, I was wondering, what is the goal of the Lenten retreat? And we know that the church is calling us to deeper conversion in every Lent. So that is the goal of the retreat. And the church very bluntly told us about this goal on Ash Wednesday. The second reading taken from St. Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, he said, "We implore you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God." If we are to be reconciled with God, then it means that we are divided, that we are in conflict with God. So St. Paul called us to be reconciled. And how are we going to be reconciled? The church also gave us the answer on Ash Wednesday from the book of the prophet Joel. He told us that we are to return to God, be reconciled with God by rending, tearing apart our hearts, not our garments. So in other words, we are to go deeper, dig down to the roots of our hearts and see what is it that is preventing us from really be reconciled with God. We are not to remain at the surface of our hearts. I think that such attitude is one of the temptations that we can face as we enter more deeply into this Lenten retreat. And how do we remain at the surface? It seems to me that one way, it could be that when we are setting our Lenten practices, we can remain at the surface when we are just deciding what do we want to do during Lent, giving up chocolate, giving up whatever you give up during Lent. It seems to me that, we can very easily just remain there and just be content with those practices during Lent, when maybe God is not calling us to do that. Maybe God is calling us to give up something deeper within us. So today in the gospel, we hear that Jesus goes to the desert. And I think that that's an invitation for us today as well. We are to go to the desert. And I mean in the figurative sense. Why the desert? The desert is a wide open, devoid of many distractions. The image of the desert just invites us to empty ourselves of excessive amount of stuff in our life so that we become receptive to God's voice. And also being in the desert very powerfully contributes to awaken our sensibility that our existence is relatively insignificant compared with God. We are creatures and God is a creator. So the desert it teaches that, and it gives us a sense of humility, silence, and purification. So during this Lenten season, I invite you, before going deeper into this Lenten retreat, that you take the time of desert time, fruitful moment of silence, so that you could see more deeply within yourself what is it that is preventing you from being reconciled with God. And I just want to just offer you one way of doing that. So I'm thinking about that we can go into the desert by engaging in the daily examen of consciousness. As you might know, that is a practice that has been generally promoted by the Ignatian spirituality. This practice should not be confused with the examen of conscience that the church invites us to do before we go to confession. You know, in that examen of conscience, we just are asked to make a list of all the sins that we have committed and confess those sins. But the examen of consciousness in the Ignatian spirituality it just invites us to grow daily into awareness of how God, the Holy Spirit, has been present throughout the day in our life, how God has invited us to act, and whether we responded generously or we ignore God's invitation. So as we grow in that awareness, we will begin to realize that we have to do many changes in our life. And God doesn't really invite us to do all of those changes at once, but God is inviting us, as we do that practice, we will realize also that there is something particular in our life that God is inviting us to change at the present moment. So I believe and I think that if we grow into that awareness, we will be able to see during this Lenten season what is it that God is inviting us to do, specifically to us. Not just giving up some small thing, but we can go deeper and see what is it that is preventing us from being reconciled with God. So I just want to offer you that today, and hopefully you can take that time, that desert time, and grow into that deeper communion with God during this Lenten season, so that at the end of this retreat, we can really experience the deeper conversion that the church is inviting us during this time.